Few cities in Europe feel as unified as Bath, with all those sweeping curves organizing the entire city. But this harmony was not accidental. In the early 18th century, Bath was no more than a small country market town in the southwest of England. Within a few decades, however, it became one of the most popular, elegant, and beautiful cities in Europe, thanks to a series of transformations made by an architect and his son. But long before its modern popularity and architectural flourish, the history of Bath goes back to antiquity, when it began as a Roman spa town, renowned among ancient travelers who journeyed to bathe in the sacred springs of a local goddess. After the Roman conquest of Britain, the island became the province of Britannia, with important cities like Eboracum, York, and Londinium, London. Bath quickly emerged as an important tourist destination for the Romans, who named it Aquae Sulis, which is Latin for the waters of Sulis, the Celtic goddess that was worshipped there. The Romans built an elaborate bath complex around the hot springs, and for a few centuries, the city thrived as a center of ritual, health, and leisure. The remains of this Roman complex can still be seen today, located in the center of the city. There, you can see the steaming waters rising from the earth, surrounded by the stone architecture and engineering that once made Aquae Sulis a destination for the ancient world. After the fall of the Roman Empire, Bath began to decline and was destroyed by barbaric tribes. The Roman street pattern and buildings were lost. During the Middle Ages, the city re-emerged as a religious town, developing a nucleus of narrow streets, and it became a flourishing center of cloth production. Today, two main features of medieval Bath remain: its dense network of narrow organic streets, and its abbey, the architectural crown of the medieval nucleus. Bath Abbey seems quite different from other Gothic churches in England, and that's because it's the last major church built in medieval Catholic England. By the time this abbey was being built in the 1500s, other European countries such as Italy and Spain were in the midst of the High Renaissance. Bath Abbey belongs entirely to the final phase of English Gothic architecture, known as the Perpendicular style. It features perpendicular tracery in its windows, and one of the finest examples of fan vaulting in England. The nave is extraordinary. It features one of the most dematerialized vaults in a Gothic structure. The piers dissolve into delicate ribs that spread across the vault, allowing thinner buttresses and larger windows that flood the interior with light. Its front facade is very unique too. On either side, carved ladders rise upward with angels climbing up and down. This is a representation of a passage from the Bible, where Jacob has a dream about a ladder that leads to heaven. And it's intended to give the church a meaning of connection between heaven and earth, and a path to salvation. It's a beautiful representation of the Catholic theology that still defined England at the time. Details such as pierced parapets and thin pinnacles enhance the sense of verticality and lightness in the structure, making Bath Abbey one of the most delicate Gothic structures in England. The city's commercial strength gradually declined, and by the end of the 17th century, Bath was no more than a quiet market town. In the late 1600s, renewed claims about the healing powers of its hot springs began to circulate. When Queen Anne visited in 1702, the city's reputation was restored almost overnight. Aristocrats, politicians, and members of the English elite flocked there to bathe and socialize. Money began to flow in, and Bath started to grow and expand over the region. It was at this moment that an ambitious architect named John Wood the Elder saw an opportunity. Inspired by the new urban squares being built in France, particularly the Place Vendôme in Paris, where multiple houses formed a single architectural ensemble, John Wood the Elder planned Queen Square, northwest of Bath's medieval nucleus. In order to achieve that unified composition that characterized French squares, he designed Queen Square to resemble the forecourt of a palace, dominated by a projecting pediment and columns on the northern elevation. Although the facade is composed of 7 separate houses, it is arranged in perfect symmetry, creating the illusion of a single aristocratic residence. The houses in the side elevations step down in accordance with the sloping ground, yet maintain identical facades to preserve unity. The southern elevation has a sober facade that echoes the grandeur of the northern facade without competing with it. Wood designed only the exterior elevations, allowing each owner to hire their own interior architect as long as the facade adhered to his master plan. With this project, John Wood the Elder introduced a modern sense of scale and order to the irregular medieval fabric of Bath. A few years later, John Wood the Elder planned King's Circus, a major circular plaza enclosed by 33 houses. He connected the Circus to Queen Square through Gay Street, where he continued the same rhythm of houses with step-down facades along the sloping ground. For the Circus, he used the same strategy as before, designing the entire elevation as a single unified composition that defines a decorous urban edge, and letting each client hire their own architect to design the back. The circular facade is divided into 3 equal segments, allowing 3 primary streets to radiate outward from the plaza. Each house consists of 3 principal floors, with an underground basement and an attic on top. Small yards are sunk into the ground in front of the facades, allowing daylight into the basement level and providing the houses with discrete service entrances. At the time, 18th century archaeology was on the verge of rising and rediscovering ruins of antiquity, such as the ruins of Rome, Pompeii, Greece, or Egypt. John Wood had previously measured and surveyed Stonehenge, and he became obsessed with the ancient pre-Roman cultures that inhabited the area, so he applied the geometry of Stonehenge in his design for the circus. In Stonehenge, there is an outer elevated ring surrounded by a ditch, and an inner ring formed by the stones proper. The diameter of the space of the circus closely corresponds to the diameter of Stonehenge outer ring, and a ring of trees planted at the center echoes the prehistoric stones. References not just to the ancient civilizations of Britain, but also to the Roman past of Bath are evident in Wood's project. The facade is organized in 3 horizontal registers articulated by paired columns, each level employing a different classical order: Doric at the base, Ionic above, and Corinthian at the top, creating a vertical progression similar to that of the Colosseum in Rome. Like many architects of the time, Wood was associated with Freemasonry, and he carved Masonic symbols into the triglyphs of the lower entablature, including allegories of knowledge such as a compass drawing a circle, a telescope, a canvas, as well as references to classical Rome and ancient civilizations. John Wood the Elder died while overseeing the construction of the circus. His work was continued by his son, John Wood the Younger, who, at a moment when Bath's popularity and demand for housing was rapidly increasing, extended the western axis of the circus and connected it to a new residential complex, the Royal Crescent, a work of true genius that redefined urban development. Whereas John Wood the Elder conceived urban form through the typical Baroque strategy of linking architectural spaces with a wide primary street, defining the urban edge and leaving nature out, John Wood the Younger tries to engage the urban edge directly with the natural landscape. He preserves his father's innovative concept of strictly controlling the facade design while allowing different plans for the interiors. However, instead of enclosing the space, he integrated the landscape by forming a half ellipse with a major axis of 155 meters built around a sloping hillside. He secured a legal covenant ensuring that the open field to the south would remain permanently unbuilt, perpetually preserving uninterrupted views of the unspoiled landscape toward the River Avon in the distance. So the city no longer turns its back on the irregular natural condition and the topography, but completes itself with it by blurring the edge between ordered urban form and open landscape. Because the crescent was intended to be seen from a great distance across the open field, its facade required a more monumental language. So instead of stacking the columns using the 3 classical orders as in the Circus, Wood used the ground floor of the houses as a base for a continuous row of giant Ionic columns that frame each window of the 2 upper floors. He also added an attic floor on the top, set back behind the cornice line to reduce its visual impact and preserve the purity of the elevation. The leveled lawn in front of the houses is private, reserved exclusively for the residents, and it is subtly contained by a concealed retaining wall known as a haha, an invisible boundary separating the private garden from the steep public field that slopes down towards the river. The illusion dissolves when viewed from the rear. You can see how each house differs in plan, distribution, and size, as it all depended on how much facade each owner purchased. The urban expanse of Bath comes to an abrupt end with the construction of Marlborough buildings, which closed the Royal Crescent to the northwest. From there, the development continued uphill, forming a street that would lead towards the later Lansdown Crescent, a multi-curved development designed by architect John Palmer. Lansdown Crescent extends the idea not just to make a more complex curve, but also to make it move up a hill and down a valley, creating a rhythm where space is revealed to you in a way that, as you approach, the volume becomes the open space. This crescent overlooks open pasture land grazed by sheep, pairing again the distinctive neoclassical architecture of Bath with the landscape of rural England. Even though Bath has a medieval core with a Gothic abbey, the architectural character of the city is for the most part that introduced by John Wood. Most buildings share the same neoclassical features that were popular in England during the Georgian era. This consistent architectural language, with shared scale and proportion across the principal urban spaces, gives the city an extraordinary sense of unity and cohesion. Many of these site planning projects were financed by Ralph Allen, owner of the stone quarries in the area. Allen saw in Bath an opportunity to showcase the quality of his limestone and supplied the material for the urban projects. The result is a city built almost entirely from the same golden limestone, a material continuity that gives Bath its unmistakable character. Allen's ambition extended beyond the city itself. He commissioned John Wood the Elder to design Prior Park, a Neo-Palladian country house overlooking Bath, further promoting both his tone and the architectural ideas of the age. The sequence of majestic urban spaces created by John Wood, father and son, influenced countless cities throughout Britain, from Edinburgh, where the model of the Circus was reinterpreted, to London, where architect John Nash developed picturesque urban compositions on an even greater scale, as well as the many terraced houses that adopt the identical facade concept applied in Bath. Bath is a city designed as a composition where geometry, landscape, and architecture converge into a single unified vision. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned. Please check out my channel as I have a lot more videos about European cities explained, as well as extra content for my channel members. Also like this video to support the channel, and I'll see you very soon in the next episode. Goodbye.